Alright guys, welcome back to our channels. What's up? We are back with another book talk. I'm Kayla, and this is Miranda. and so we are back with another book talk.
And today we are joined by two fabulous poets. We have Cyrus Parker and Courtney Peppernell.
So yeah, we're gonna hang out, ask them some questions. They were so kind to make an impromptu stop on their tour to hang out with us at Unlikely. So we are gonna dive right into some questions. Yeah. So first off, you guys are both on tour, so tell us what that's like, and like, do you have a favorite part of touring or a favorite place that you've been so far?
Well, my tour with my wife Amanda Lovelace, it kind of just kicked off, so like I don't really have a full tour experience to talk about, but we started kind of locally and like our local Barnes & Noble. She just had a signing with Courtney at the Strand, and that was really awesome turnout. It's a really cool event, and this is actually my second event today here with you guys, so I'm really excited about it. It's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've come a pretty long way. I've always loved America. This is my 6th time in America. I've done a lot of traveling through lots of different parts. I started in Seattle, and I love Seattle. Like when I was younger, I wanted to live out here, and then for a long time wasn't sure kind of what area, but Seattle just reminded me of Twilight. So I really loved it there. I did a signing in San Francisco. Went to the Andrews McNeil's in Kansas, and Kansas was a different experience again. New York, obviously with Amanda and Cyrus was there cheering away in the audience, and that was really cool. It was a really good turnout, and now we're here. So I love it here so far. We've got really cute houses around here. So.
Yeah. When did you guys start writing? And did you like poetry as kids? A little Dr. Seuss.
Some Michelle Silverstein.
Yeah, I mean, I love Dr. Seuss. I've always sort of been writing. Growing up, it was a way to express myself. I started a lot with short stories. I began writing novels, so I've kind of just fallen into poetry. So I'm learning more and more about it as a genre as I go along, and I just love how it just connects everyone, and everyone's just coming into it, and it's just been it's really cool.
My start was a little more untraditional. I didn't really read poetry when I was younger. I was kind of one of those people who was kind of turned off by it in like an academic setting because it was poetry from another time. The language is different, and you have to actually like sit down and really study it to figure out what it means, which there's nothing wrong with that. I do like to do that now, but back then when you're a kid, you kind of want that instant gratification.
Right.
But in terms of writing, I kind of always been a writer, a storyteller. I started off making like comic books and my own little spiral notebooks. I would never get more than a couple pages in because it's a lot of work to draw and write the story, but a little bit of fan fiction, a little bit of Legend of Zelda fan fiction, and then I started wrestling. Me and my friends and my brother, we started up a backyard wrestling group because we liked to play the characters. And there's a lot of storytelling in that. You build a character, you develop that character, and you tell a story through the matches and the promos and stuff. And that actually led to me pro wrestling for 5 years when I lived in Michigan. And after I stopped wrestling, I started going to school for creative writing, which I'm in my kind of last semester. I'm supposed to graduate in this spring. That's kind of when I got into poetry, was through school. I took a creative writing class, and halfway through we focused on poetry, and I really connected with it. Around the same time, Amanda, my wife, told me she was writing The Princess Saves Herself in this one. So everything kind of fell into place at the perfect timing.
So I know you guys are obviously super busy, but when you do get to read, what do you guys like to read? What kind of genres are you into? What are you doing right now, if anything?
Poetry, a lot of contemporary poets, and I like young adult. My favorite young adult author is Lee Bardugo. I love her Six to Crow series. I kind of, I don't know if I can put my sleeve up, but I got the drugs tattoo.
Nice.
Oddly enough, Lee Bardugo officiated mine and Amanda's wedding back in October, which is really cool. We kind of just threw it out there on Twitter on a whim, and she actually agreed to do it, and she showed up, and it was so special, so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love Jodi Picoult, so I have always loved her. I love the way she writes. I love how she just ties everything in so nicely together in her novels. So I think for me, if my go-to author is her. I actually grew up next door to Marcus Zuzak, who wrote The Book Thief.
No way.
Yeah, so yeah, he's awesome. He's always been a really big inspiration for me. His parents are beautiful people. They mind my parents' cats, so when they're away and stuff. So yeah, so definitely I think those two authors would have been, I guess, the biggest influence in my life, and just with my writing. And I've said this before, but I love, with my novels, I love how I can tie that into poetry with a lot of the prose that I write. When you're writing prose and even shorter pieces, you're trying to create, I guess, a story in some of these poets out there these days, they create a story in one sentence, and that's a skill. And I was just saying the other day, I really like, going through Instagram, and it has this really organic feel when just a piece of writing just jumps out at you. And you might not know the author, or you might say, oh, hey, I've recognized that, but it doesn't really matter, it's just a piece that jumps out at you. So
I was wondering how you were going to follow up with the Bardugo about Marcus.
Yeah.
That worked. So what inspires your writing the most, would you say?
Life. My debut poetry collection, Dropkick Romance, is directly pulled from my life. My two most impactful relationships. But before I decided on Dropkick Romance as the book I was working on, I was kind of writing about everything, a lot of social issues that are important to me. Just everything that happens in this world is an inspiration, and I think there's a lot to pull from just life in general.
Yeah, no, Cyrus is right. I think when you are a writer, or you're aspiring to be a writer, you can sort of draw on inspiration from everywhere. I definitely, my girlfriend, my partner Rian, is a really big inspiration. Pillow Thoughts was created because I was looking for a card for our anniversary, and I couldn't find something that represented one woman loving another woman. I don't know if it's different out in the States, but definitely in Australia you don't really go into a local supermarket and find those types of cards. So I started that because of her, and a lot of the poetry is about her and for her. But also just in general my readers. I get so many emails and messages day in and day out of people sharing their stories, and I like to write about that. I like to sort of say, I love hearing about your story, and I want to put that in my writing. And another cool thing too, just going back to how novels and poetry, I guess, interlocked is, I'm in love, so when I'm trying to write about heartbreak, I'm not heartbroken, I'm really, really happy. So yeah. So I feel like, when I get in these zones, I like to think about, me as a character, and if I was upset today, or I was going through heartbreak, what would I feel? And obviously I have experienced heartbreak in my life, and you kind of go back to those moments in your life and explore them again, I guess. So yeah, it's just cool how you're always constantly changing with your writing. You always go through an array of different feelings and thoughts. But
and that's so funny that you're saying you put yourself in as a character, because I read Pillow Thoughts and I was like, she knows my life. So do you guys have a singular favorite poem in your collections?
There's this one, it's one of the last poems, and I like to finish my set with it. And it's kind of I talk about writing poetry. It's kind of like an Ars Poetica, where I kind of talk about actually writing poetry, and I ended by saying that these moments that I'm writing about, they're already poetry, and it's translating from one language to another. There's always kind of something that gets lost in the translation. I like that piece quite a bit. It's one of the ones I'm most proud of.
I mean, my favourite is Looking for Ice Cream. That poem is at the back of the book, and I wrote that for Ian. Everything that happened in that was me writing it, on my phone when we'd just gotten back from the grocery store. It was winter. I didn't know why I should want ice cream in the middle of winter, but we were looking for it, and that poem really, so many people, they gravitate towards that poem. I know the Chainsmokers, that was the one that they tweeted out. It was the one that they liked the most. It's kind of the one that really started all of this, which is funny because I almost never put it in the book, it didn't make it. That's why it's on the back page, because I was like, oh, I'll put it in there. And that's the one that people like the most. So yeah, definitely that one. It holds a very special place in my heart.
You guys say too, there can be some criticism sometimes that modern poetry lacks craft or isn't real poetry because it's not that Shakespearean, like you mentioned before, not the old-timey stuff you're reading in class.
You don't have to dissect it to relate to it and understand.
Haters gonna hate. That stuff bothers me because there's a market for everything, there's a reader for every type of poetry. There's so many different styles. There's as many styles as poetry as there is people.
Right.
No two people are going to write the same thing, and they're not going to write it the same way. And like, who are you to criticize what somebody likes or what somebody writes? Like, just because you don't connect with it, just because it's not your preferred style, doesn't mean it's not poetry.
Well, I'm just going to hire Cyrus because he's a pro wrestler. So no, I think poetry, for me at least, writing and poetry, it's always been about expression, and there's no right or wrong way to express yourself. I think whatever style it is, as you said, there'll always be an audience out there. But also, I feel like this concept of modern day poetry is becoming, I guess, a gateway for some of more of the traditional kind of poetry. It's somebody goes into a store and they pick up Pillow Thoughts or Dropkick Romance and they read it and they go, oh, hey, I like that, and then maybe they look at Edgar Allan Poe or Emily Dickinson or something, and it's just crossing them over. So I don't think it's anything really people should be negative about. It's all really positive. And yeah, in terms of people who, I guess, say negative things or whatever, I ignore it. Honestly, I don't even read it. Like, I don't have time for that. Like, my biggest thing is, people who are going to support me, like, that's who I'm here for. Like, you have my full attention, that's who I focus on. Anyone who's, some people leave 1-star reviews because a handprint was on their book, like, oh, come on. So, it's like, you just have to look at that as, oh, well, like, move on, that happened. New day tomorrow, and look at all the people like supporting us and have been like amazing. That's who I focus on. I focus on the readers because they're amazing, and I love you guys. We love you guys.
You guys are kind of bringing in like the new wave of poetry, and I think people are just so like stuck in their minds that they don't even realize that this is what's happening.
I mean, it's a gateway. That's what I think it is, and like I reference Poe and Dropkick, and like there's a respect. It's not like, I don't think people think we're kind of like desecrating it. I don't know.
I mean, it's feelings, and that's what it comes down to. Like 50 years ago, people were still writing about love. They were just doing it in the way that society related to it at the time, and we're doing it in the way that society relates to it now. So I really don't see. It's just not a. I like. Come on, like, just if it makes people feel good, then I'm all for it. If it makes people happy, that's what counts.
So, Cyrus, can you tell us like what it's like having a poetess or a wife, and like, would you guys ever collab or co-author something together? Like, how do you guys inspire each other, like work together?
It's really interesting because I know she's always been a writer, and I've always like knew she was going to do big things, but this is so wild. Like, I mean, even though I knew this was going to happen, I knew she was going to be successful. It still blows my mind every day. And it's so cool because when we write, we can sit around and bounce ideas off of each other. And like Dropkick Romance wouldn't be Dropkick Romance if I hadn't sat around with her at Red Robin's and I'm like having a meltdown over my original manuscript because I didn't think it worked well. And we kind of like talked about it, and we kind of like worked on it together a little bit, and it's really cool. And I would like to collab with her. We've talked about doing like a split poetry book. We haven't really like fleshed. We haven't fleshed the idea out too much yet, but it's something we're definitely interested in doing.
Courtney, your turn. Your partner, you guys from the poetry, you can tell that, and you were even saying like you're so in love. So what does she think of your poetry? Like, does she read it beforehand? You write the cards instead of like those cheesy Hallmark ones? And how is it with the distance and being on tour and everything?
Well, the thing is I went straight out and I dedicated a book to reading. So now every time I try to do something romantic, I have to think of like one up. Yeah, like I have to top it all the time. But that's fine. I mean, we like being romantic and stuff like that. I feel that's just our relationship and stuff like that. But she's very, very supportive. Rian is similar to me but different. She's fierce, she's a leader, she's a lawyer, so every time I tell people that, they're like, don't sue me for breathing. But yeah, she does law, so being away from each other it's very difficult, but we understand, like, she has her career and I have mine. I miss my dogs too, like we have dogs together here in Dakota, and we live a very normal life. Like, it's just very, very family people. And our families, like my parents, her parents, we've been very, very blessed as two gay women to have families who have been so open and so supportive, and supported us all the way, and they love our relationship as much as we love our relationship.
Yeah.
So
They ship it.
yeah, yeah, we're their OT. What is it?
OTP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, she's really, really supportive, and I do read bits and pieces out to her, and she'll like, I think you should put that one in there. So yeah, it's awesome. I love her a lot.
Okay, so you guys both kind of represent like minorities in poetry as like someone who identifies as non-binary and someone who's a part of the LGBTQ community. So like, what's your take on that? Like, what are your thoughts, and like what kind of message are you guys really trying to spread through your work?
The whole non-binary thing is kind of new for me. I always like questioned my gender growing up, but I hadn't really like known there was a term for it, and it's something kind of new that I'm kind of working through. But I think it's important to have voices that are of different genders and all sorts of diversity, diverse voices. And I didn't really touch on that in Dropkick, but I'm working on the follow-up to Dropkick, and that's something I want to definitely write about, because I think it's important to normalize this stuff. So when younger people are growing up and they're having these questions about themselves, they're not forced into like this box that society's kind of put out for them, where they don't have the opportunity to explore themselves. So I think definitely like raising voices and normalizing it is important.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think that, you know, being part of the LGBTQ plus community, it's a responsibility, and it's about being relatable. So when that's another reason why I wrote Pillow Thoughts, because I didn't there weren't too many books out there that had, you know, she, her pronouns or whatever. So I was like, you know, thinking about the young sort of kids out there who maybe look to people just like them, and they get, you know, I guess inspiration, hope from that. So I'm very proud to be gay. Like I'm very open. I've been open, you know, for a very long time now, and I don't hide anything. But at the same time, you know, as an author, it doesn't define me as a person, you know, and I don't go out there with the intention of, you know, making sure every single one of my novels with, you know, gay characters, but I do like to normalize it, you know. I feel like, especially there's a movie that's just come out, Love, Simon, and you know, it's very, very normal, and it's exactly what Sarah said. It's normalizing, you know, who we are as people, and, you know, we go through things in our life, and we function the same way as everyone else. So it's just being, you know, people that others can look up to, and it is a responsibility, but I think one that we're willing to take on and be supportive of everybody in the LGBTQ plus community. Everybody deserves a voice, not just, everyone does. So,
and I think you guys are doing a really great job. We're in like a really interesting period in history where we're normalizing these things that weren't previously, and I think it's a really awesome opportunity.
Yeah, it's good to be alive at this time. So
I'm gonna lighten up a little bit now. I feel like this question is for your respective covers for the books that you brought today, the jellyfish is so cute. Kayla did a recreation of it downstairs that we were all like, oh my gosh,
took me like
jellyfish.
a long time to do, but I was proud.
well, you did it well. That was
Yeah,
cute.
looks good.
Right? Everyone knew it was a jellyfish, so that's step one.
That's all you need.
And then we have obviously Dropkick and the awesome white boots. So what was the significance for those when designing it, and how much, I guess, input did you have in coming up with the covers?
Well, I mean, with the jellyfish, so one of the reasons it's a jellyfish is when I was looking at creating this book, I really wanted like a character. I wanted something like someone could relate to, and I wanted it to be very transparent. Like, you would look at it and think, you know, I don't know if that's male or female, I don't know who they love, I don't know where they've come from, the colour of their skin, like all that kind of stuff. Just so everybody can relate to it, and somebody can, you know, look at it and think, hey, that's me. And now, like, you know, I do get loads of emails saying, I believe that that's me in that book, like the jellyfish is me. Someone wrote to me the other day and was like, hey, jellyfish, and I was like, it's super
cool.
cute that they've taken on this character now. So yeah, and one of the biggest reasons when I went from self-published version to published by Andrew Smith was I really wanted the reader on the front cover, and to me, the reader is the jellyfish, so that was the biggest reason why I was very adamant about putting the jellyfish on the cover. But yeah, real life jellyfish sting you, so don't wear hats, so don't go.
She is Australian, she knows.
I know, yeah.
Very fortunate to be with Andrews McNeil because we get a lot of control over our books and what goes into it. A lot of publishers, the authors have no input on the cover at all. They're just given a cover and that's that. But Andrews McNeil allows us to have our own cover the way we want it to be. Of course, they give their own input, which is cool, but the freedom is very important, I think, especially with poetry because it's so versatile. You can't put it into a box. As far as the boots go, though, as I mentioned, I used to wrestle professionally, and I kind of wanted to bridge Cyrus Parker, the wrestler, and Cyrus Parker, the writer, and kind of bring it together. And because wrestling played a very important role in my life, so I just kind of wanted to bridge the two together. And
Kayla did attempt to draw the boots.
I did, and then I had to quit very soon. I was like, Miranda, what do you think? And she's like, ankles are hard, guys. Okay, I tried.
it's true.
What are like both of your writing processes like? Like, where do you start? How do you like go through the ideas? And like, what kind of things do you go through? Like, what are your steps and your mindsets when you go through?
Scream. No. I think
It's valid.
I think for me, the biggest turning point, I guess, in my life, and especially doing the writing thing, was when I released my first novel, Chasing Paper Cranes, because I self-published that, and it took me 2 to 3 years before, like, from writing the book to actually have it edited, go through the self-publishing process, just because I don't think I was ready for that kind of, like, there is so much you have to do, covers. Even one of my favourite things that I learned, it sounds a bit silly, but the spaces between words to make sure all the words like fit, like that's a thing. And it was just, there's so much in it, and I feel like you really have to, I guess, learn it from, you know, not only from you being inspired and wanting to write because it's your passion, but also from a business perspective. You know, if you want that to be your career, you have to understand marketing, advertising, how to get your words out there, how to get your book out there. Like, that's half of it, and it's a big job. So just in terms of, I guess, my writing process, it went from, oh, I'm only going to write when I'm inspired, to, no, I have to sit down and I have to put effort into this, and I have to really treat it, I don't know, I guess just have structure. So I've been telling a lot of people that come to the signings, you know, they ask about, you know, what I'm writing to, and like, what do you do? And I read this book, it's by an author called Chris Fox, and it's called 5,000 Words Per Hour. So he basically goes through like he goes through, like, I don't know, you just train yourself up, and it doesn't have to, it's not going to work for everyone, you know, lots of different authors have like the different styles that they do in different ways that they sort of sit down and hash it all out. But for me, putting an hour or two aside each day and just putting as many words as I can on a page. Jodie Picoult even said, I think it was her, she was like, you know, a page full of writing can be edited, but a blank page can't. So I really operate off that, and I just, I go for gold. And then other days when I'm not feeling it, I was talking about it last night, I started learning the violin, so I try that, and I'm going to do archery lessons. So I just step away from it and have me time and do the other things that I love, raise my dogs, hang out with my girlfriend, and then go back to the writing. You just have to not be hard on yourself if you can't. You just have to take a breath, step away, and then come back to it. So yeah, that's really what I do.
Kind of the same, I agree with that, especially at the end. I'm one of those people who, I can't write every single day, and if I don't have, like, if I'm staring at a blank page and I just can't come up with anything, I'm not going to force it. I mean, it's always good to write, but I don't know, I don't like to force it. And I like to do a lot of my writing in my journal. I carry a journal around with me all the time. That's something one of my professors told me you should do. And I'm like, my handwriting is garbage, I don't like to do it. I'm really lazy, I'm lazy when it comes to writing, but it stuck. And I wrote a good portion of Dropkick Romance in my journal, and then I would later transfer to the Word document and kind of flesh it out a little more, edit and revise, and, you know, build upon it. And it's kind of my process now. I write in my journal, transfer it to a Word document when I have a decent amount of pieces, and then I dive a little deeper and work primarily on the computer.
You guys have, like, coming out with new book me get excited for?
I got nothing right now. I'm working on my second book, and that's about it. I'm just working on it right now. publishing plans exactly, but
you'll have way more out, trust me. I have Pillow Thoughts 2, Healing the Heart is coming out this summer. So I think it's up for pre-order at the moment. I'm always really delayed like with the announcements and stuff. I have to catch up and be like, oh, it's out. And then I'm working on a new novel called Finding Marnie that yeah, it's based around a German Shepherd, so I'm going through the motions of that at the moment. I do have plans for Pillow Thoughts 3 and 4, so I want to do like a whole series. People have really taken to it, so I want to give people what they seem to like.
Will Jelly be returning?
Absolutely, the jelly is here to stay. And then I'm also working on another little project that I hope maybe one day in the future. It is a poetry book about dogs. So it's called Poems for Paws. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, that's
so
cool.
Poems for Paws.
Poems for Paws. And then you kind of answered this before, but just any, I guess, additional advice for writers and poets, because there are a lot, I feel like, of people who, now that they have poetry more accessible, like you guys said, they feel like they now have a better way to express themselves, and they want to build upon that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super cliche, so I just sort of say follow your heart. But like, I think, you know, like, when you write, and especially something as personal as poetry, people do it in a way where they just put all their feelings and their heart on a page, and I really feel like your heart can lead you through your life. So trust your instincts, and it's all about building an audience. So use social media. Social media is such an amazing platform, especially in the way we are today. It's just about building an audience and getting your work out there and getting a response to it. And yeah, like obviously, if you're traditionally published and stuff, it's the distribution and all that kind of stuff. But self-publishing is such a good way to learn, and it's there's so many people out there who've had such a positive response from self-publishing. Like, self-publishers are awesome. Like they do and put in just as much work as anyone else. So I would start with self-publishing and try not to doubt yourself too much. Believe in yourself. I have a big problem with believing in myself half the time, but you really have to. Yeah, the person you have to back is yourself. So you have to have that faith in yourself and just go for gold, really.
I've seen a lot of people who they look at self-publishing as a backup plan, which I get, but I've also heard from people that it shouldn't be a backup plan, it should be a business choice. Like she said, a lot of people that I know have found success self-publishing, and take pride in that, because that's still a very it's a big thing to do, putting your work out there in any form. And self-publishing is no different than traditional publishing, and it's a lot more responsibility, but it's definitely worth it. I mean, I haven't had experience with that myself, but I know people who have, and I definitely recommend it. And I just be honest with yourself. When you write, just be honest. Don't write because you think someone wants to read it. Write what you need to write for yourself. And if somebody connects with it, that's awesome.
So thank you guys so much for being here. And I know it was super last minute, like I said. So thank you guys so much for being able to drop in. And
thank you. We're happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Drop kick. We really appreciate your flexibility and hanging out with us. We really love these opportunities because you don't really get a lot of chances to even meet the writers that you look up to, but never mind just getting to sit and chat with you guys. So this is awesome, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we'll have links to all the books and social media down below if you want to check it out.
And each other's social media.
Well, yeah, but I'm trying to be nice.
Excuse me.
And also ours, yes. So make sure to give this video a like. If you enjoyed it, share it. Tag
all your friends.
Courtney and Cyrus and everyone, your friends.
If you're writing poetry, share on social media. Tag all of us so we can see.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you guys. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you
for having us.
See you next time, friends.